Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. Several weeks ago, I made a pretty in-depth video about the ADA fertilization regime. If you haven't seen that yet, I'll leave a link to it so you can watch it later. Continuing along with some more ADA instructional videos, I thought it would be nice to explore another topic that hasn't really been covered much, and that is the filter maintenance of the ADA Superjet filters. Today, we'll do some maintenance and trimming on this ADA 90p aquarium, and then clean the entire filter. I'll try to give some tips and tricks, since it's a little bit more intimidating at first glance. Before we get to the filter, there's several other things I need to do first. If you've seen my videos by now, you might already know my routine, but I'm thrilled to see several new viewers coming to the channel lately, so I'll explain it again anyway. I always start by turning off the filter and heater, and take out my ADA Pro Razor to clean the glass. It must be the healthy plant mass and strong filtration, but cleaning the glass and lily pipes almost seems a bit unnecessary every week for this layout, since it almost looks spotless and algae-free anyway. For me, it's just part of keeping the routine and trying to perfect the setup. I haven't been too happy with the color of the plants lately, and I have to blame it on a faulty TDS meter that I've been using. It was misreading the TDS, and I was inadvertently making the water much harder than I probably should have. So I'm happy that I made this correction, and I'm hoping that the plants will get deeper and more saturated colors with the softer water. I have my water change system attached to my utility sink, so that way it drains the water. It's pretty slow, but I'm okay with this method since I have so many other things to take care of while the water is draining. This tank is in need of a major trimming, but I actually have visitors coming to the gallery this weekend, so I'm just going to be doing a touch-up today, and I'll save a bigger trimming for next time. Some of this Hygrophila pinnatifida is growing way too tall and large, so I'm going to give it a good trim to continue teaching it to grow more compact. There are some runners that have strayed far away from the driftwood and are almost touching the front glass, so I've got to remove those as well. I have an extra plant holding tank, so I like to take some of the trimmings there in case I need it for a different project. The Ranunculus inundatus has really grown and taken over the mid-ground area, so it could definitely use a trim as well. My Glossostigma elatinoides carpet was struggling. It's growing too tall in the mid-ground and not at all in the foreground. I think it's starting to look better than in the previous weeks though, and perhaps upping the fertilization might have helped with that. There are still some bald spots in the Glosso carpet, so I take a lot of this taller trimmings and find places to replant them in the foreground. It's really time consuming, but I think it's worth it to help jumpstart the carpet and make it thrive. When I notice that the water level is starting to get low, I grab some buckets and empty out more water through the filter. I'm going to need some water saved in the buckets in order to clean the filter media and the equipment later. I usually aim for a 50 to 60% water change once per week. If it becomes more like 8, 9, or 10 days, then I usually lean towards the larger water changes. I know that it's going to take some time to clean all the components of the filter, so In the interest of not allowing the plants to dry out, I actually start filling up the tank right away with my RO water hose. I let the aquarium fill up while I start getting to the filter maintenance. I've been working with Superjet filters for the last year or so. I'm not admittedly the most experienced person in the hobby when it comes to these filters, but I think I've picked up on some good information that will help the average hobbyist. If you have any tricks of your own that you'd like to share, I invite you to leave them in the comments. I think the best thing to do first is to backwash the filter. Any empty canister filter is much easier to work with than a filled one, and when you get to those larger sized filters, it's an issue of safety in carrying them as well. So I push water out through the outflow by blowing into it, and all of the water empties into the bucket. Be careful to make sure that the water is emptied completely before proceeding. I like to use a sponge and spring washer to clean the lily pipes. The sponge is great for cleaning the outside of the lily pipe, and I also like to use it to clean the outflow. The ADA spring washer is used to clean the inside of the lily pipes. One thing to take into consideration is that the Superjets have two different sized spring washers, since the inflow uses a 16 by 22 millimeter hose and the outflow uses a 12 by 16 millimeter hose on this particular filter. Getting to the bottom of the inflow pipe is not usually possible with the spring washer, so it's necessary to clean it separately. I've heard of tricks for this, but the thing that has always worked best for me is to add the inflow lily pipe into a bleach and water solution. It's about 75% water and 25% bleach. This is the same way that I clean the diffusers, which is why it just makes sense to clean them all together. Next, you have to take a slotted screwdriver to detach the hosing from the filter. Once apart, I start using the spring washer to clean the inside of the hoses. Over a long period of time, these hoses can start to turn a bit yellowish, so they have to be replaced every now and then. Some other brands sell black, gray, or other colored hosing, but I prefer clear for aesthetic purposes, but also because it helps me to ensure that everything is clean for proper flow. I repeat the same process for the inflow hosing. Since I keep an inline heater, I have to work around it, and it gets a bit awkward since I tried to tidy up my cables under the stand, so I have a little bit less room to work with here. Cleaning the diffuser, lily pipes, and hosing takes place on average every other week for me. My rule is to clean it once I see any speck of algae on any of the components. I know people who clean these weekly, and I know a lot more people who do it much less frequently than every other week. It's a bit up to you, I guess, but I think every other week is a good way to go. For me, cleaning the inside of the filter is less frequent. I'm only cleaning the inside every 2 to 3 months on average. Since the latches are quite stiff and hard to open, I use CO2-proof tubing to open the filter. To let you guys know, this filter was cleaned about 2 months ago now. It's a bit sooner than I would have otherwise cleaned it, but I wanted to do a little bit early so you guys could see the whole process. Opening it up, I first remove the filter floss that I added to the top to remove some debris. For 2 months, I'd say it's looking pretty clean. Next is the Na carbon that I added about 4 months ago at the beginning of the layout. It's probably no longer effective anymore, so I can just leave it out from now on. After removing these, we have the ADA Bio Rio G, which is the biological media that came with the filter. I have 2 large bags of it. You really have to wiggle it out, but the way I clean it is by gently sifting it through tank water. This is where a majority of your beneficial bacteria colony is located, so you definitely don't want to use tap water or other untreated water that could potentially harm the bacteria. Sifting through both bags, I'm pretty surprised how clean the media is despite 2 months of not cleaning. In my older Awaze and Eheim filters, the color would be much more dirty during these cleanings. Without knowing for sure, I'm contributing this to the effectiveness of the filtration system as a whole and how healthy the aquarium is running overall. Once it's been cleaned through, I start reassembling the filter. I won't be adding it any more carbon at this point. It's much more important at the beginning of the layout. So I instead decide to add a bit more biomedia that I had lying around. I top it off with some fresh filter wool. The rest of it was discarded as there's no reason to reuse that. I put the tray back on top of the filter and make sure that the O-ring is secure and in place. As I said before, this maintenance is less frequent and only has to be done every few months. Now this next part is going to be done even more rarely. I'm going to disassemble and clean the impeller to the filter, which is a process that only has to be done about twice per year. The impeller and the filter pump helps to ensure that the flow is not compromised. If you want your filter to last many years, it's really important to clean out this impeller every now and then. This was my first time cleaning the impeller on the larger Superjet models. I'd previously done it on my Superjet ES 300, which I found to be considerably easier to work with. Getting the screws off the impeller casing was not so easy, especially the one that was underneath. It's really difficult to access. You also have to unscrew the mounting screws for the pump as well. Again, not the easiest to take off. From there, it wasn't difficult to remove the impeller or clean it. I just gently clean it with the sponge first, again in tank water. Then I use a small spring washer to get some of the corners cleaned off as well. You repeat the process for the inside of the pump. I use the larger spring washer and the sponge again. Reassembling the impeller and pump was just about as fun as it was to take it apart. Now that it's all put together, I can close the latches on the filter and begin reattaching the hosing. I also tried to drive off any water that accumulated on the filter to keep it looking clean. I was actually using a spare inflow lily pipe after breaking my original one. So I have this new ADA lily pipe and need to recut the inflow hosing to make it fit properly. Notice I haven't attached the outflow lily pipe yet, and I have a good reason for doing that. I'm going to need to prime the filter, and I do this the old-fashioned way. I suck on the outflow hosing to begin the cycle. Since I backwashed the filter, there's no risk of drinking any tank water during this. I leave a bucket for water to flow into. I want to make sure that the water is running out perfectly clear before letting any of it back into my tank. The last thing I want is a bunch of detritus and debris floating around my freshly cleaned aquarium. The way I handle the next step is to pinch on the end of the outflow hosing and quickly attach the lily pipe to the hosing. If my hosing was long enough, I could pull it beyond the water level in the aquarium and it will stop water from pouring out. But because I cut the hosing to a pretty exact length for aesthetic purposes, I have to be rather quick in setting it up to prevent any water from spilling. There are better ways of handling this that are a little less risky. Besides making the hosing longer, as I previously mentioned, you can add a single or a double tap connector. With these you can shut the flow off temporarily, so that way you can more easily set the outflow lily pipe without risking any spillage. I do have these on some of my aquariums, but I don't use it on this one, again for aesthetic purposes. It's bad enough that I have the inline heater attached to the hosing, so I really didn't want any other things attached to the hosing so I can get a cleaner look. I'm also not a fan of the plastic look of the connector taps. The water level came down quite a bit from this, so I fill up the water all the way and net out some of the extra trimmings. I like to make sure I'm finished cleaning up all the trimmed leaves before I turn the filter on. I find it much more difficult when the water is flowing. With my new functioning TDS meter, I add some GH/KH plus to my tank until the TDS is approximately 100 to 110. I've been setting it a little bit lower after seeing my tank's TDS creep up throughout the week. My ideal is 120 TDS, so my logic is if I start a little bit softer, it will land in that range after a few days. After cleaning the glass, I'd say we're good to go. I hope this video was helpful to anyone who's unfamiliar with the ADA Superjet filters. A lot of the same principles apply to other filters as well, so it can help you even if you have a different brand filter. A clean filter usually means a clean aquarium, so please don't neglect this part of your maintenance. If it's a really long time since you've cleaned it, give it a go in your next maintenance session. Then I challenge you to clean it one more time the following week. Then you'll see how important it is to maintain the clean filter to your aquarium. If you have any other ADA specific guides you'd like me to discuss, please let me know in the comments. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.